Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Mordy and Glory video. In today's episode, we shall be continuing to cast our critical eye over the 10th edition Imperial Guard Index. And we shall also be doing our last video on the Scion data cards. We've talked about the Torx Prime, we've talked about the Scions themselves, but now we must look to the top, to the commanders. It's time for us to review the Militarum Tempestus Command Squad. Led by fearsome Tempestus Primes, these command squads make up the beating heart, the brain of the Stormtrooper Corps. But with the new command phase prohibiting Scion officers from doing orders out of deep strike, are these command squads still relevant? Or are they a relic of a previous edition? Well, there's only one way to find out. We need to sanction some elimination protocols and shoot right into today's video. As is tradition, let us begin with a brief overview of what the hell a Militarum Tempestus command squad actually is. Essentially, they are the Scion equivalent of your Cadian command squad or your platoon command squad. There is an officer at the core of them and he is surrounded by a bunch of regular troopers. And you have all sorts of unique weapons and war gear options that allow the squad to perform a variety of roles. Perhaps you want them to be focused on special weapons, bringing more firepower into a single nice, neat package. Or maybe you want your command squad to provide a bunch of extra buffs, things that can increase the toughness and durability, maybe make your guys better at holding objectives, or simply acting as a force multiplier. Of course, Scion command squads, being comprised of stormtroopers who are the best, the elite of the guard, they do get access to some extra equipment, not only including special weapons on the troopers, but also for the officers as well. Combine this with the fact that Scions tend to be used very differently to regular guard, and that this command squad can deep strike, and you actually have a unit that, whilst on the surface might just seem like a fancier group of lads, actually is going to play very differently on the tabletop. To understand this a bit more, why don't we lift up the rock and have a look underneath? Let's get into the deep dive, and we'll begin with that stat line. Each command squad consists of 1 Tempestus Prime and 4 Tempestus Scions. Now the Scions are exactly the same as those you would find in your Militarum Tempestus Scion squad. They have a movement value of 6, toughness 3, 4+ save, 1 wound, leadership 7, and OC of 1. Essentially, you can see them as a guardsman with a bit less OC, but a bit better save. Of course, the main difference between Scions and Guardsmen comes down to the ballistic skill, which we'll be getting to in a little bit later on. We come to the ranged and melee weapons and all that kind of good stuff. As for the Tempestus Prime, he also has a movement value of 6, a toughness of 3, a 4+ save, leadership 7, and 1 OC. The big difference between him and the regular bozos is he does have 3 wounds, making him noticeably tougher than the guys around him. Sadly, if you are a veteran of the 9th edition Codex, you will notice that the Tempestus Prime has lost his 5+ invulnerable save. It only took him 5 years to get it from the 8th to 9th edition book, and after 6 months, he's lost it again. Little bit disappointing because Tempestus command squads are meant to be a cut above the rest of the guard. If any of the officers were going to keep their refractor field, it probably should have been him. But on the other hand, it does bring this command squad in line with the other ones. The Cadian commander and the platoon commander also don't have their refractor fields anymore. It seems to be only something that is reserved for senior officers and commissars. It's not a big deal. At the end of the day, a 5+ invuln is nice. It occasionally pops up and makes yourself feel good about yourself, but losing it is not the end of the world. It's just a bit of a shame. But now let's move on to the weapons. Of course, starting off with the ranged ones. Each Tempestus Prime as standard comes equipped with a bolt pistol and Tempestus dagger, and each Scion comes with a hotshot lasgun and a close combat weapon. Any number of Scions can swap their hotshot lasgun out for a flamer, a grenade launcher, a hotshot volley gun, a melter gun, or a plasma gun, but you can't ever take more than one of each weapon. So even if you went for 1 Tempestus Prime and 4 Scions, and you gave all of them special weapons, you would have to pick, let's say, 1 grenade launcher, 1 hotshot volley gun, 1 melter gun, 1 plasma gun. You couldn't take 4 flamers or 4 melter guns. However, if you're not interested in the special weapons and you'd rather go for some of the cool, unique equipment that command squads get, 1 Scion who has a hotshot lasgun can also take a regimental standard. You've also got a Scion who can swap out his hotshot lasgun for a hotshot las pistol and a master vox. And then you have 1 Scion whose hotshot lasgun can be replaced with one of the following: a hotshot las pistol and a medipack, or a hotshot lasgun, a hotshot las pistol, and a medipack. Now, before we move on, if that last entry sounds confusing, don't worry, it's confusing me too. Because why would you ever choose to swap a hotshot lasgun for just a hotshot pistol and a medipack when you could swap out your lasgun for a different lasgun, a las pistol, and a medipack? Feels to me like you're always going to pick that latter option. I'm also slightly confused because in editions gone by, the regimental standard bearer of the Scions could also take the medipack. I'm not certain that is the case anymore. You see, when you equip a Scion with the regimental standard, there are these 2 little asterisks at the end of the sentence on the data card, and it says that model's hotshot lasgun cannot be replaced. So even if you were to try and swap out the standard bearer's lasgun for a different lasgun, hotshot las pistol, and a medipack, and try and recreate the old double doozy medi flaggy guy, you can't, because you can't replace that model's hotshot lasgun, even if you're replacing it with another hotshot lasgun. Maybe I am reading too much into it. I keep reading the sentence. The more I do, the more my brain hurts. Definitely feel like it needs an FAQ. If you're watching this right now and you think you know the answer, please let me know down in the comment section. And if you're like me and your brain is leaking out of your ears, please go down and check that comment section, because I am sure someone will have been able to provide a clear-cut answer. But moving forward into a simpler time, the last weapon option you have for the squad is you can replace the Tempestus Prime's bolt pistol with either a plasma pistol or a command rod. But what do all of these weapons and war gear things do? Well, as for the ranged weapons, they're pretty much all standard issue, and if you've seen my Torx Prime, Kazakin, or Scion video, you'll have a good idea of what these guns do. The Tempestus Prime's bolt pistol, standard issue, the flamer, the grenade launcher, all the same as you'd find everywhere else in the Guard Army. The hotshot lasgun, las pistol, hotshot volley gun, we've covered these multiple times before. Essentially, they are like normal las weapons, but with an extra bit of AP, with the hotshot volley gun being the only really unique weapon here, being a light support weapon with rapid fire 2, 30-inch range, 2 attacks, so 4 at close range, and a ballistic skill of 3+, strength 4, AP -1, 1 damage. We've got the melter gun, the plasma gun, standard supercharge, and of course plasma pistol, standard supercharge as well. The only thing to really mention about the ranged weapons is outside of the flamer, which auto hits, all of the other weapons hit on a 3+. That's to keep it in line with other Scions, but it does actually separate this from other command squads, because your platoon command squad and your Acadian command squad, the veterans in there only hit on a 4+. So Scions hitting on a 3+ means that you can actually do quite good fire support with a Militarum Tempestus command squad. Other than that though, we've covered all of these things to death in other videos, and what I'll do is, in case you've not seen them, I'll put a link at the end of this one to my last Scion video, which covers all of these things in detail. As for the melee weapons, each Scion comes with the close combat weapon. He still has 2 attacks hitting on weapon skill 4+, strength 3, AP 0, damage 1, but the Tempestus Prime actually gets a Tempestus Dagger, and this is essentially a chainsword with a fancy name. Your Tempestus Prime gets 4 attacks at weapon skill 3+, strength 3, AP nothing, damage 1. To be honest, It's very disappointing that Tempestus Prime's melee loadouts. In additions, in the past, you were able to give him all sorts of equipment. You could have him with a power fist or with a power sword, just like the regular Silent Squad leaders, but you can't do that anymore because the official Tempestus Prime model has the greatcoat with the dagger. GW has now said that's the only way Tempestus is ever going to battle now. It's really silly, very frustrating. I myself have built multiple primes with power swords, power fists, all sorts of different weapons because that's what they could take. That's what the box allowed me to build. And now I'm being quite constrained just because GW only wants me to build the models in one specific way. It just doesn't feel good for the hobby, and it doesn't feel good for Scions in particular, because these are meant to be the best of the best. Meant to have access to more weapons, more war gear, more stuff. But for some reason, their officers actually have the most limited loadout out of any of our generic commanders. Of course, this being a command squad, the weapons are only part of their repertoire. They can also get lots of war gear abilities. The first one is the Medipack. The Bearer's unit has a Feel No Pain 6+ ability. This is quite nice. It means if you attach your command squad to a 10-man unit of Scions, you will have a 15 brick strong squad, all with a 6+ Feel No Pain and a 4+ save. You combine that with something like Take Cover, and suddenly you're actually getting quite a durable little unit. Something that can not only take an objective, but maybe even lock it down. Speaking of locking it down, you then have the Regimental Standard. Add 1 to the objective control characteristic of models in the Bearer's unit. This is actually kind of important, because regular Scions also only have an OC of 1. So they can sweep objectives clear, but all it takes is for a handful of termagants to move on, and you might not end up taking any points away from your opponent. Having that flag in there allows you to sweep, clear, and secure the objectives that you're going after. In addition, we also have the Master Vox. Each time the officer in the Bearer's unit issues an order, it can issue it to an eligible unit up to 24 inches away. In a Platoon Command Squad or Cadian Command Squad, this is an amazing war gear ability. You take it every single time, you pair it with Leontas. Oh my days, all the orders going everywhere you want. In a Sound Command Squad, I leave it at home. I wouldn't bother with it. Not only can the regular Tempestus Prime only do one order, and he's probably just going to do that to the unit he's leading, but typically they're either going to be on the front lines, or deep striking down, at which point you can't attach other officers to them. So why do you need a long range order? Because again, it's just going to go on the squad it's leading. Or if you do have them as a more frontline unit, maybe starting on the board, not sure why you would. You probably want to take advantage of deep strike, but hey, you might have a game plan. It's still risky. Why would you put your Lord Soul in a unit that's going to be getting up close and personal, doing damage, smashing it, and then he just dies? He's not going to have as many wounds surrounding him as well. You want your Lord Soul protected by a 20-man blob. So it just doesn't feel right. Oh, and the last thing to mention, of course, the Silent Command Squad is more expensive than a regular Command Squad. So if the main thing you're trying to get out of this is, I want Leontas to be able to do long-range orders, I want Greed to be able to do long-range orders or whatever, just use a regular Command Squad. There's no point in really using a Sound one. It costs more and probably doesn't do the job any better. The only caveat to that entire ramble is if you're a pure Scions player. Yes, they do exist. There are dozens of them. It is entirely possible to run Scions as a pure standalone army. This has been something you can do for years, ages, since 5th edition, maybe 6th edition, a long time. So there are those people that just have Scions and they don't want to be bringing other command squads and other infantry. In that circumstance, if you're bringing Leontas to lead your Scions, this is when you're going to want the Master Vox. But before we move on to the normal abilities, there is one last bit of war gear we need to talk about, and this is unique to the Scions, and it's the Command Rod. While the Bearer is leading a unit, that unit can be affected by up to 2 orders at the same time, essentially giving them the equivalent of the Kazokin Warrior Elite ability. On the surface, this seems alright. The more ways you can stack orders onto people, the better. Unfortunately, I don't think it quite pans out in reality. Firstly, Tempestus Prime can only do one order, as we mentioned. If you want him to be able to benefit his own squad with the command rod, you're going to have to spend more points on something like Grand Strategist to give him an extra order. Or you're going to have other officers around the map that are going to have to either be in range or have a Voxcaster, and in that case you're probably looking at something like the Lord Solar, and his orders are probably going to be going on things like tanks, because he is a great source of orders for units that aren't infantry. So it just feels like the command rod does something cool, but you've got to pay for the squad, then pay for the enhancement, or you've got to start using it. It just doesn't feel like it works. For me, it's a paper ability, not a tabletop one. But here's the thing. If I had to be 100% honest, I don't think I'd take any of those war gear abilities. I would just focus on doing as much damage as possible. I would take as many special weapons as I could. And the reason for this is the Tempestus Prime ability. While this unit contains a Tempestus Prime, ranged weapons equipped by models in this unit have sustained hits 1. Just think about that for a moment. If you take a 10-man squad of Scions and then add on the Scion command squad, you've got 15 Scions. That will give you 3 plasma guns, 3 volley guns, a grenade launcher, and a melter gun, and all of the hotshot lasgun shots, and the 2 plasma pistols from the Tempestus Prime and the Scion Sergeant as well. All of that deep strikes down against an enemy unit holding an objective with full rerolls to hit, hitting on 3s, and with sustained hits. It's just an insane amount of firepower in one single deep strike. If you're the kind of person that likes to use your Scions to just drop down, eliminate a target, and then you don't care if they die afterwards, that's what I'd do. I think the days of taking several 5-man little Scion, Melter, or Plasma Suicide squads is over. I think you take those 3 5-man squads you were doing and you combine them into one mega 15-man squad, 10 plus a command squad, load them up with all the special weapons, all the damage dealing, and you just drop down and annihilate one thing. I think it is essentially a delete button. Or, if you like the idea that we had in the last video where we talked about motorized Scions and Tempestus Primes getting the full rerolls to hit and the full rerolls to wound, I don't see why you wouldn't take a 5-man Scion squad and then attach a 5-man Scion command squad, and suddenly in a single 10-man unit you have got 8 models with special weapons. Each Sergeant and Tempestus Prime is rocking a plasma pistol. And you've got a plasma gun and a volley gun in the regular Scion squad. You've got 4 special weapons in the command squad. And you've just got 2 bozos left over with las guns. And all of that getting all of the buffs. And now it's getting sustained hits as well. Scions don't need orders. This is what has become abundantly clear to me. You can certainly build up tactics. And I will be doing a video in the future on the Scion Death Ball 2.0. A tactic that I developed in 9th that I think does translate into 10th. But honestly, I think if you just want a little Scion kill team in your army that you can either drive up to the objective, jump out and clear it, or drop down and clear it, that's the way you do it. Take a command squad and attach it on. Of course, everything we've talked about today, by and large, has been through the lens of running Scions as part of a normal guard army, having them as a more elite choice alongside your regular guardsmen. But what if you want to run pure Scions? This is something that we've mentioned several times throughout the series. Well, if you were to look at the Scion datasheet, you'd be confused about how you could do that, because Scions aren't battle line. So you can only take 3 squads of them, right? That's not enough to build an army on, even with the 3 command squads supporting them. Well, don't worry, my little Scholar Progenium pupil, because the Tempestus Prime has one more sneaky, hidden ability. You won't find it on the data card under the same area as your abilities and your war gear abilities. Instead, flip it over and it's on the side with your war gear options, unit composition and leader. In the bottom right hand corner, there's an extra little box that just says Tempestus Prime. Underneath it, it says, if this unit's Tempestus Prime model is your warlord, Tempestus Scions units from your army have the battle line keyword. Now, to be clear, it doesn't start affecting things like Torx Primes. I mean, you can already take 6 of those because they're dedicated transports. And it doesn't affect your command squads. It means specifically the Tempestus Scions datasheet. Those squads of 5 to 10 guys you can get. But that's really good. It still means that rather than being limited to 3 squads, if you have a command squad as your warlord, you can take 6 of them. And if you take all 6 and 3 command squads, you're looking at 75 Scions and obviously a crap load of Torx Primes and other stuff as well. So that is a way of being able to run pure Scions, and I'm very, very glad that GW made that a thing, because without it, I think it would have been a massive tragedy for a lot of players who have dedicated a lot of time and money into collecting the niche pure Scion army. Of course, it is worth mentioning that if you are considering going all Scions, you don't actually need to limit yourself to Tempestus Command Squad, Tempestus Scions, or Torx Primes. There's nothing stopping you from taking a Militarum Tempestus Command Squad as your warlord, taking lots of Scions, and then taking tanks, Rogal Dawn, even Russets. Because no longer do you have to limit yourself within a detachment, an old 9th edition, 8th edition saying, and that detachment has to be a Militarum detachment. No, that doesn't exist anymore. There are no 4-sword charts, there are no detachments. It's just take a command squad, Scions become battle line, and all the other units in the index are now available to the Scions. I really like this. I don't see why Scions wouldn't have access to their own armor pools and their own air power and all sorts of great stuff. So for me, it's great, and I actually really look forward to seeing some players embracing this. It would be amazing to see some converted Scion Rogal Dawns, maybe some converted Scion artillery pieces. It just feels really cool. And not only does it mean you can still stick to the fast-moving, operationally light, traditional Scion armies, which are just all about gas and no brakes and just smash, go, momentum, Dark Elder on hard mode, all that kind of stuff. You can keep doing that. But now if you want to collect less of a Scion army and more of a Grenadiers style army, you can do that. You can have Scions as battle line, you can add in some Kazakin. Now you're getting up to over 100 Scion or equivalent Stormtrooper models, because you've got the 60 plus the command squads, plus you've also got the Kazakin, and you can also add in some heavy armor as well. So I feel like GW's moving slightly away from Scions being a separate entity, and instead they're coming back round to their old 4th edition, 5th edition roots, where you could take Grenadier regiments, you could have veterans and carapace, you could have stormtroopers and carapace, and I really like that. I think it's a great way, and it also means for those Scion players, finally they can start collecting some other models that they've had the eye on for a while, but they've not been able to use in game. Of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comments section below. Do you like the new Tempestus Command Squad? Do you see them more as a force multiplier? Will you be running the war game abilities, or will you be focusing on the special weapons? Of course, if you've enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. And I just want to say, if you found today's video particularly helpful or informative, then please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter. By supporting the channel, you will not only be helping me create more content, but unlocking loads of perks for yourself, including access to the Mordian Glory Discord server. This is an online community with over 2,000 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We have got channels for army lists, tactics, hobbying, painting, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. And I just want to take a moment to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. You truly are the lifeblood of this channel, and I could not do Mordian Glory full time without your generous support. And last, but certainly not least, I want to say a personal, special, heartfelt thank you to all of my top tier supporters. These are the War Masters, the people that have truly gone above and beyond the Call of Duty. So a massive thank you to Bon Vert, Ken Starr, Mark Panconi, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Nicholas Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Thank you guys. Your ongoing and incredibly generous support makes a huge difference, and I am eternally grateful to each and every single one of you. I hope you've all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.